Good evening, everybody. Rosie here. Happy Saturday to all. Let me get the chat up so that I can see it. Hope that my sound is okay. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for being here. Tonight, we're doing a little housekeeping, a little bit of catch up, and who knows, maybe a little bit of other shenanigans. We are going to jump right in. Share my screen with you. All right, let's begin on my wall. I know that I don't go live that often. I'm a very, very busy girl, but I do share a lot of my research on my YouTube wall and in my Cracklin' Rosie Facebook group. So let's start on the wall. Okay, obviously that's just an advertisement for tonight's stream. I see that I'm going to need to cover a little bit of Felix Gilroy, since many of the experts in the quote unquote community are a little bit clueless. I shared a little bit of my analysis, or a summary of my analysis on the Gilroy deposition in my Facebook group and then on my wall. I thought there were going to be a few presentations on Gilroy, so while I had the research, I just never really followed up with a live stream, since I find most people find the legalities and the documents rather mundane or boring, if you will. I don't. I have full analysis that I've put together on the Gilroy deposition as well as a Lipsig. Tonight we'll cover a little bit of the Gilroy, and I am not going to go through the actual deposition, though I do have mine highlighted and ready to go if there are any questions. But I think that if there is interest, we will cover that at another time. As I said, I just don't think that there will be a lot of interest, but we'll cover it in a summary format tonight. Moving down, let's open this up. Let me see if I could get this a little bit better with another screen. How's that? That should be a little bit bigger. So earlier this week, if you know me, which most of you really don't know me personally, but if you do, you know that I like to find a little humor in these very dark topics. These matters get very dark sometimes, and well, I don't know. I just think that you need to look for a little light in it all. So I shared this photo and I wrote, "Is this what the alleged snuff van looked like?" Honestly, I didn't remember MT mentioning that Cecilia saw the green quote unquote bus, but I'm surprised some of the ultimate evil experts thought it was a big revelation to hear her mention it in the DA interview. See if I could get that bigger. Now, I recognize that this van is probably a later model, but if this is the green Volkswagen bus, it's kind of dorky for a snuff van, but yeah, whatever. Moving right along. And I did do some work that I shared this week on my channel in a playlist with regards to Cecilia Davis, and I'll go through that in a minute. And this was another one of my attempts to put a smile on your face. Is this how Beam's press secretary envisioned the photo op from hell? Of course, this is my depiction of it. This isn't an actual photograph. But the little story behind this is, if you don't already know, at the press conference after the arrest of David Berkowitz, Mayor Beam appeared to be about to congratulate him, thinking that he was one of the detectives on the case. And quote unquote, the photo op from hell is what his press secretary, Sid Freegan, called it. So if that is true, and Mayor Beam almost gave Berkowitz a handshake, that's how I am pictured it. Anyway, just my little funny for that day. And I probably think that that's it. Oh no, here's the Cecilia Davis timeline. So for those of you that follow my work, and I know that many of you do, even though you don't comment and you have your own revelations after watching my work, I'll just read it right from here. Since the release of Cecilia's Queens DA interview, there's been some discussion about her storyline. She appears in a few places on the CRTC's SOS timeline and has several links of compiled information. And what I did on this was I had included a link. So if you press after that sentence, if you press more, there's actually a link, and I'll share this instead, that goes to Miss Cecilia Davis's timeline. I also did a short reel on it so that you could listen to it if you don't feel like reading it. But this is what I call a timeline within a timeline within a timeline. And I try to do this as much as possible because I find that this case being very old, and really not having any revelations in data since the data drop. I mean, it had been so long since we had seen anything on this case, and we were just relying on books and newspaper articles. So now that we have the information, I like to keep in my timeline a compilation of everything, because I've said this before. I look at everything, I don't discount anything. And the stronger your knowledge base is on the case, the more information you can use, because you can call out bullshit when you know what the facts are of the case. So, especially when it comes to books, we have the Klausner book, which is something that people use as a big source. And I've already discussed Klausner in great detail on another live, so I'm not going to babble on about that. But in many ways, he provided a lot of information for us to help us. But if you're not familiar with this case, you're not going to be able to pick up on where he got it wrong. And a good point was brought up. Klausner had a lot of access to a lot of information. Again, I brought this up already on a previous screen. Sorry, let me get this captions on the bottom off. Y'all know, if you want to help support, subscribe and and all that bullshit. You know the deal. Let me get it off the screen. Okay, perfect. Come back to my chat. But anyhow, I know there was a point there somewhere. Oh yeah. So again, if you know the case, you can use everything, because you know what's inaccurate and what's accurate and what's unknown. And you can use discernment when you're doing your own research. Now, one of the revelations that I really had this week is that a lot of people do not research this case. They are just enthusiasts of the case and enjoy watching videos and presentations on the case. And there's nothing wrong with that. Not everybody is a researcher. Just like not everybody does groundwork, right? And I do offer credit to the people who have hit the pavement and have done work on this case and have shared their findings and have brought on guests that have been able to give context to a lot of the subjects relating to this case. I'm a researcher. I'm very analytical. I have no problem. I'll stay up, which I did this week. I will stay up all night reading legal documents and things of that nature and do analyzing and that's what I like to do. I enjoy that. I nerd out on that kind of stuff. I like comparing different sources and making links. And that's where I really find my strength lies. I never claim to be an expert. I am an eternal student of anything that I'm studying. I think that you really cut yourself short when you consider yourself an expert and you can't get anything out of anyone else, or you have nothing else to learn. You really limit yourself. So I'm not going to go through it because I already did a reel and you have access to the PDF for those that would like it. But it goes through a very condensed and summarized version of Miss Cecilia Davis's timeline. And I think I was pretty clear in my series that from the time she started, where she's giving her account the night of, and then all the way down to her appearing on the Unsolved Mysteries, her story really became much more embellished. So that's all I'm going to cover on her. I think I did enough Cecilia Davis. I've provided a lot of information for the community, and you are welcome to go to that playlist and just hit play all. It'll go through it for you. They're shorty style, like I like to do. And you can enjoy it that way. If you have any questions, you could always comment or, leave them on the actual video. I do make an effort to go back and answer everybody. All right, so let's come back. I'm really pretty sure that that's about it with the cleanup. Yeah, and here it says 10 days ago, I had asked if you're interested in a comprehensive presentation on Miss Cecilia Davis, we can do a dive into her information, dense slides on the CRTC SOS timeline. We could also review and comment her 1979 DA interview, which criminal justice Chris obtained via FOIL. I can cover it for you on a live, whatever. I'm not going to read that whole thing, but I didn't get a lot of response. So I just went ahead and did it the way I like to do it in rosy shorts. So let's jump back to the timeline. I think that's all I need from the, oh wait, I'm sorry. Let me just show you real fast. So if you go to my YouTube page, and go to playlists, you'll see Miss Cecilia Davis right there on top. I also made a playlist for Tommy Zano, but the catalog that I have in there is a little bit older now, but I did want to put it all together because it also shows his progression and his changes in the story. So, and then before I was referring to the post, that was the first page that we were on. I really encourage you to look out here because, again, I don't go live that often, but I do put up information, even though it's usually in a summary format. But whatever you see on this wall, rest assured that whatever you're looking at, I have, so much more data compiled on that subject. I'm just not throwing it out on my wall. So, okay, enough. I think you all know where my YouTube channel is. I'm going to stop sharing that. Let's come to the timeline, and let me just close some windows so that we don't lag. there's been some talk about D Channel for a bit, and I covered D Channel a couple of years ago, and I continue to follow the research that I did because D Channel is a very interesting character. So I'm not going deep into her today. I just want to give you a quick peek from the timeline. So, of course, this is a young D Channel on your left. And I gave a credit out to Dustin Madeline, who originally found that in a book. And I, of course, found the picture of Maury and Nessa and Basteri and quote unquote Lee Chase when I did that video quite a while ago. Of course, this is just Nessa and D. And she was a very interesting character. She reached out to David Berkowitz, if the reporting is correct on it, in November of 77, after she'd seen footage, I'm guessing through the archives, well, at the time they weren't archives, but through the news reports, that Berkowitz called himself an animal and he did not feel that he even deserved to live. And she was a quote unquote Christian counselor specializing in demonology. So she reaches out to David Berkowitz early on while he was still in Kings County, and they stayed friends for a very long time, pen paling. She and her husband were into true crime, and they were feeding Berkowitz information about different cases. I'm not going to go into that, but I just thought I'd give you a quick sneaky peek. Those of you who have followed my work saw this stuff a long time ago, but I have like every archive with relation to her. This one's the one with that Berkowitz was concerned with the gay stuff. This Anna Luna sent me 4 years ago from the Hyena auction, and this was the Treasury of Witchcraft and Devilry, and the card that he wrote that David sent to D. We covered that. Again, this is a sneaky peek. Here's a link to more archives, which you don't really need to look at. I have more letters from auction from D, and that's right here. I'm hoping that you see my cursor. Here's some relative passages from The Ultimate Evil. And then this is the book that I was referencing, The Devil and Karen Kingston. And again, this was a while back. Patrick Thomas and Dustin Madeline had shared it in 2.0 a long time ago. And it was this picture that helped me find, or helped me realize when I found the Geraldo old archive, that lady, this one, or the bigger picture, her face was the same, was D Channel / Lee Chase. So we'll move on from that. I just wanted to give a little show of that. Let's go back on the timeline. And then there's been some buzz on some work that I did a few months ago on the Middle of Silence gallery. And I suppose what happened there was I had some research in Facebook. I had some research on my YouTube wall. I had a video, and then I had a shorty. So at some point, what I will do is I will make a playlist, because believe it or not, even what I shared, I have even more information on this gallery. So I will make a playlist for those of you interested in. Basically, they were art gallery / sex cult. And if you watch my videos, you know. If you didn't, go back and watch. But all these archives we had, and I shared them. I believe in Facebook, or I shared some on the Reels. I made the connection that Maury Terry was well aware of them and they were in his book. And, before I started doing the deep research, I really was not, I didn't remember that. So obviously, going back to the ultimate evil, I was able to make some connections. Yeah, so that's how I really like to deep dive. I like to look at all sources. I like to look at the books. I like to look at the archives. I like to look at the legal briefs. I like to look at the depositions. And then I read it all, assimilate the information, and I make my own reports. And those reports I either share when I come online, or I'll share summaries of them, because I realize some of the stuff is it's just very laborious and it goes over most people's heads. So faded from the public eye, and this was my short on the Middle of Silence Gallery. Eventually, they faded from the public eye for two reasons. Legal pressure, because they were challenging major corporations like McGraw-Hill and powerful legal teams. They often kept their individual identities private to avoid libel suits. The Satanic Panic connection. Later, theorists tried to link the Carmine Street address to various cult investigations of the late 70s. This caused many of the original artists to distance themselves from the address to avoid being caught up in the sensationalist Satanic Panic that followed the Son of Sam era. So remember, we covered, they fought to have the book stopped because Berkowitz was not happy with the McGraw-Hill book and said that there were a lot of lies. And then I go on, and I'm not going to read all this today, but I went and searched what they were doing after the fact, and they were very heavy in the AIDS activism. And here's some stuff that you can also find on my wall. If you are interested, you can go to my Facebook. You can follow the page, and all this stuff is available for you. So moving on. Let's close that. Oops. I think I lost. Sorry, I got to link that back. There we go. So let's get out of D channel and go back here. Yeah, I think that's all that I really wanted to cover there. If you're familiar with my work, you know that I've covered the many stories of David Berkowitz umpteen times. All of these are links here on the timeline, and they all go very, very deep into all of his stories. What people fail to realize, a lot of people like to poo-poo the demon story, but that demon story still keeps coming up. So something to consider. All right, let's move on from that. We will share this page now. And I'm just going to close off again a few tabs. Felix Gilroy. Let me go back to this. I think it looks better. I think that's better. I think it's big. Okay. Again, he is the attorney who represented Mittiger in the Sam Sleeps. The deposition happened October 26th, 1978. Maury accompanied him. He was in an administrative capacity. And this is the summary that I shared, and I have a little bit more to add to it. So if you haven't seen the page, let me just grab a little sippy here. I'll quickly read it to you, and then I'll share a little bit more. I'm not going into my full analysis. My full analysis is like 8 pages. So I don't want to bore you with that, but I'm going to give you the bullets. Okay, deposition summary. This is written by me. These are my notes. This deposition features the questioning of David Berkowitz by attorney Felix Gilroy, representing defendant James Mittiger. The session took place at the Central New York Psychiatric Center in Marcy, New York. So that's known as Marcy. Most people just say Marcy. Assistant Special State Prosecutor Thomas McCloskey and Security Hospital Treatment Chief George Daly were also present. Key testimony: relationship with guard Herbert Clark. Berkowitz confirmed that correction officer Herbert Clark frequently guarded and spoke with him through his cell bars, sometimes for hours. While the prosecution claimed Clark was bribed to communicate with Berkowitz, Berkowitz maintained that the conversations felt normal, covering topics like his life and the shootings. He denied ever receiving notes or physical items from Clark, though he did admit he gave Clark sealed letters to mail for him. So a lot of times people ask, how did these letters all leave Kings County? You know, he was writing everybody. He was writing Governor Carey. He was writing the cars. He wrote Craig Glassman from Kings County. He wrote Breslin from Kings County. He was writing the Middle of Silence back and forth from Kings County. Well, Clark was mailing letters for him. Okay, media and the hints, quote unquote. Berkowitz acknowledged that his letters contain hidden references and word substitutions regarding his living situation, such as Pine Street and Wicker Street. He admitted he purposefully included these hints because he, quote unquote, wanted the police to come and find him, though he adamantly denied utilizing any complex or professional code. The Carr family and deflection. Throughout the deposition, Berkowitz provided deeply contradictory statements regarding the Carr family. He initially claimed he knew Sam, John, and Michael Carr, stating that he hated them, shot Sam Carr's dog with a .45 caliber rifle, and intentionally used John Carr's name in a letter to reporter Jimmy Breslin to place a finger of suspicion on them. Later, he admitted that his claims of knowing them personally were lies, though he reiterated a belief that they were tied to devil worship and a witch's coven, quote unquote. So here's classic back and forth on the part of Berkowitz. He knows them, he hates them, he doesn't know them, but yeah, he knows that they were into devil worship and a witch's coven. Again, this is all part of my summary of the Gilroy deposition. Evasiveness and spirit beliefs. Berkowitz explicitly admitted to intentionally withholding information from the defense attorney to, quote unquote, protect people from going to jail. When pressed on how deep the conspiracy went, he stated that hundreds of people were involved, but claimed many of them, including the deceased John Carr, were, quote unquote, spirits from the next world. So make of that what you will. Sole responsibility. Despite his alternating narratives about a coven and outside influences, Berkowitz ultimately stated that he acted entirely alone. He affirmed that nobody helped him, nobody told him to commit the crimes, and the acts were entirely his own idea. In the deposition termination, following a lunch recess, Berkowitz became uncooperative and stated he would no longer answer questions. Shortly thereafter, Richard Freshaw, counsel for the institution, Deputy Assistant Attorney General, entered the room alongside Berkowitz's attending psychiatrist, Dr. Daniel Uwa, upon Dr. Uwa's clinical advice that further questioning was detrimental to Berkowitz's mental health. The deposition was officially terminated at 3:19. So that's a quickie summary on the Gilroy. He flip-flopped back and forth. He was evasive, and there are places where you see he outright lies. So I elaborate. I'm going to include this because I did a little bit more elaborating on the car connection, and I'll share those notes with you. Please keep in mind, these are my notes. If you're really interested in this, go read the deposition, go make highlights, and go dig. Don't take my word for it. These are, this is what I got out of the deposition, but you should absolutely look into these matters for yourself. Okay, elaboration on the car connection. In the context of the relationship between Wheat Carr and Houston is marked by a series of confusing, highly evasive, and ultimately contradictory statements by David Berkowitz. So this was a thing. Everybody was like, oh, what do you make of Wheat Carr and Houston? And, what was up with that? Here is how the topic unfolded during his questioning. 1, the initial refusal and the quote-unquote connection. Early in the interview, the defense attorney asked Berkowitz about John Carr and Wheat Carr. Berkowitz confirmed that they are two different people. However, when asked directly, who is Wheat Carr, Berkowitz replies, I'd rather not say. He admits he has a specific reason for withholding this information, confessing that it is because they are involved with him in a way, quote unquote, and could be harmed if he answers. So that's where he is in the beginning of it. 2, the Houston link and the Carr family. Later, the timeline shifts to Berkowitz's travel history. He states that he made exactly one trip to Houston, Texas, driving a day and a half straight by car to visit an old Army friend named Dan Parker. So obviously we know who Dan Parker is. He's the one who purchased the 44 for Berkowitz. Now, and I'll just break there because it was always my impression when he went to stay with Dan, because I don't remember if I read it or heard it in a tape, but he said he only stayed there for a short amount of time because he didn't want to impose. So that to me sounded like he was staying with Dan Parker. But again, that's an assumption on my part. Okay. During this line of questioning, the attorney presses him on a key detail, the claim. Berkowitz initially claims that he knew John Carr's wife lived in Houston, which is why he went there. The contradiction. When the attorney asks how many times he actually met John Carr's wife in Houston, Berkowitz admits, I never met John Carr's wife. I don't know what she looked like. So the admission, when directly confronted with, you mean, the lawyer goes, you mean you lied to me when you said you knew she lived in Houston? And Berkowitz openly smiles and answers, yeah. He then claims he just took a guess. Back and forth, flip-flopping, and right there he outright says to the attorney, yeah, I lied. I took a guess. 3, John Wheaties. And the confusion of names. The deposition heavily blurs the lines between Wheat Carr and John Carr. Berkowitz is asked about a letter he sent to journalist Jimmy Breslin, which of course you should all be familiar with, in which he used the name John Wheaties. When the attorney asks, isn't it true that John Wheaties is John Wheat Carr? Berkowitz replies, that is a strong possibility. And then the final retraction. The connection between Wheat Carr, Houston, and the wider Carr family is ultimately dismissed by Berkowitz as a fabrication designed to malicious ends. He, again, he hints that maybe he knows them, and then he's not answering, and then he flat out says, I don't know them. So he goes from one extreme to the other. Again, make of it what you will. And then I just finished this part of the summary off with, toward the end of the deposition, Berkowitz explicitly admits that he hated the entire Carr family and wanted them dead. He confesses that he intentionally placed John Wheaties, John Wheat Carr, and other references in his letters to media figures to direct a quote unquote finger of suspicion at them and cause the family pain. He ultimately concedes that his prior narratives about knowing the Carr children personally were completely fabricated. Okay? So those are some of my notes on the Gilroy deposition. Again, I only present this tonight. I don't want too much information going over people's heads. Nobody ever came out and covered the full deposition. And I could see why. It's long. And to most, if you're not into legal transcripts and whatnot, like I am, it gets boring. So I did the work for you. I read it. I summarized it. I have much more to my summary. Like I said, my summary, I think, is like 8 pages. There, I'm only sharing 2 with you. If you want more, you can always make a request on one of my platforms. So we're going to move on from Gilroy. So Gilroy is the attorney from Staten Island referenced in the second letter read in the new Lifer tape. Yes, Book, that's correct. So it appears that there were 2 letters read and he read them out of sequence. So first he made it sound like a mystery attorney, or he was redacting the name, but it was always Gilroy. And, you know, anyone who studied this case would have picked that up in 2 seconds, but whatever. Okay, look, I'm trying to get good at this. I'm taking this off. Okay. So let's share this. We're back here, and give me a moment. Just trying to bring up another screen. Omega, you must have stayed at a Holiday Inn to know that info. No question is ignorant. If you're staying on topic and you don't know something, I don't expect anybody to know everything. I certainly don't know everything. I know a lot, but I don't know everything. It's very possible that a Staten Island attorney was chosen because I believe Mittiger lived out on Staten Island. So, yeah. All right. This is not something we're going through today, but this is also a deposition which I went very, very deep into. And this is attorney Harry Lipsig, and we've covered him on lives or in shorts or both. Can't even remember at this point. I was cleaning up my site a little bit on YouTube, and I was like, good Lord, I was just looking at some of the older videos, and it was like, wow. But anyhow, so this is Harry Lipsig. He was known as the King of Torts because he took high ticket cases. And where I covered him, I gave some examples of that. Hugh Brenner, who else? I think he got food poisoning, but big ticket items. All right, so I think it was on the Michael Carr Scientology tape, if I'm not mistaken. All right. So Lipsig represents Robert Violante and Sal Lupo, who were wounded during attacks by Berkowitz. Violante is suing Berkowitz's conservator for $5 million, and Lupo is suing for $4 million. So that's how he enters the scene. Now, Gilroy, just to give a little context, he went in and spoke with Berkowitz again, October of 78, so pretty early on, just after Berkowitz was sentenced, and Berkowitz was still or just in Marcy there. So this didn't happen till later. Let's see. I'm not going through this. I may just run through the key bullets, but this is part of my analysis of lipstick. This is something I just thought I'd tease you with in case anybody has any interest. But I am still working on, this is huge, and I'm working on with somebody else. I want to give them my analysis first. But this is something that will probably come up in the future. So just so that you know, Berkowitz was deposed at Clinton, Dannemora, by attorneys Lipsig and Sills, choosing to proceed without an attorney. So these guys went up. Lipsig was going, representing Violante and Lupo. And yeah, I'm not reading all this stuff tonight. I just want to give you a taste of some of the summary that I have. But they talk about the yellow Volkswagen. They talk about the stabbings. They talk about a conflict with the ammunition. One thing I will bring up is that he being Berkowitz, flat out denied stabbing Michelle Foreman. Denial of stabbings. He denied any involvement in the stabbing of Michelle Foreman or an unidentified Hispanic woman, and denied ever using a hunting knife. Now, we know that hunting knives were recovered upon his arrest. So, again, make of that what you will. I analyzed what the media reported versus what the deposition stated, and I made comparisons of that. And then this is just something personal that I'm working on. I did a deeper dive just on what Attorney Sills said. And I finish it with my thoughts and summation. I'm just going to give you the last sentence of this because, again, I know so much of this goes woof, and I don't want to make tonight's stream longer than an hour. But the bottom line is, in my opinion, remember, do your own legwork if you're interested in this stuff. Don't take my word for it. But in my opinion, the transcript captures a master manipulator who, having realized his quote-unquote demon story no longer serves him, simply replaced it with a cult mastermind story to achieve the exact same goal, distancing himself from total solitary blame. But that's just one observation. I will tell you, Berkowitz talks shit here. He goes back and forth. He knows the cars. He knows this. He knows that. And I put out a video. I'm not going to look it up right now, but Lipsig literally hit the press as soon as he left Dannemora. And he basically said Berkowitz admitted to a cult of about 20 people that did lookout, plotting, planning. But Berkowitz always said he was the lone shooter. And I put that video out a long time ago. Maybe I'll link that to my page for those of you that might not remember it. So add that to the many stories. I'm going to get out of that. So for those of you interested in a deeper dive into what went on in Dannemora, yeah, just let me know. I am going to be talking behind the scenes with others, really sharing all my research. You know, I'm not going to just highlight my feelings. I go on the data, and I want to provide my analysis of all the data. All right, let's switch back to the timeline. All right, so I'm going to take a little sip of water. I'm going to just cut this for a minute. I have not been paying attention to chat because I don't want to be an all-night stream, and I wanted to get some of that stuff out for you. So far, if you have any questions for me, you could put them in chat, and I'm just going to scan and see what you all heathens are talking about. Yeah, exactly. Most people would think it's a snooze fest. I don't. The more crazy and analytical it is, the more I'm interested. It's the data. The data matters. Yeah, I had my suspicions about Buck. Great question, Buck. Didn't Maury accompany Lipsig on that deposition as well? And the answer to that is a big yes. And just so you know, the way he met Lipsig, oh boy, Maury did before SOS, right? He was involved in the Atlanta child murders, doing some investigation, and someone he was working with was acquainted with Lipsig. So he knew Lipsig from the jump. But remember, Lipsig didn't get up there. He didn't get approval because initially Berkowitz is like, I don't want to talk to this guy. So he had to get a court order to go up and see him, which he finally did in 82. But yeah, yep, he did. Okay. Let's see what Omega has to say. So you must then know Jim Duffy, the bartender at Gambelli's, who also lived at Van Duzer on Staten Island in the exact safe house. So you guys are being silly. Okay, that's okay. I don't see any questions for me. So what I am going to do is just come back. I'm getting better at this, yeah? I'm getting better at taking those things off the screen. We have about, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes to go. So I'm going to come back here to the timeline. If nobody has any questions, I'm assuming that you absorbed all of that well. Maybe you found it interesting, maybe you didn't. That's okay. All right. So we're back on many stories. Yeah, I might have started getting into the demon thing, and then probably my mind flew somewhere else. But oh, wait a minute. Yeah, my mind is flying somewhere else. Let's just, since I brought it up, let me just bring this up. This is what I had shared a long time ago when I made that video on Lipsig. So the exact date that he went up was the 20th, and the same day the newspaper's making this report. Then the Miami Herald made one the very next day, and that's in my comparison. You even see a big difference in that. So lawyer Harry Lipsig, who represents two of Berkowitz's victims in multi-million-dollar lawsuits, said he interviewed Berkowitz in Clinton Correctional Facility, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay. That's not, this is what I wanted to bring up. This is the Standard Star, New Rochelle, January 20th. And this is, no, it's, I think it's in the Miami Herald, but here it says that he claims that there were 20 people approximately in the cult, but he was always the lone shooter. So this is just a little subdirectory in my, and I'm not going to play the video, but it's here on the timeline. It's in my catalog on YouTube. If you're that interested, you'll find it. Okay. Sources, right out of Maury Terry's book, he tells you how he met Lipsig. All right, let's go back. Sorry, I'm jumping. Back on the timeline and back on the demons. We're going to finish with the demons. All right, Lipsig is closed. Gilroy is closed. Those topics are closed. Demons. I don't have my glasses, sorry. All right. So not only was Berkowitz getting his psychiatric treatment, right, in Kings County, but he was back and forth with the Middle of Silence Gallery, right? They're the ones that wanted to exorcise him by mail. He had D Channel, a la Lee Chase, his Christian counselor. We know about Ollie Smith, Sister Ollie Smith. But what some people don't know is that Berkowitz also sought out Malachi Martin. He wanted him to write his book. And this is when he was still knee-deep in the demons. Malachi refused. He was not interested in writing a book for Berkowitz. But he did support him. He did offer him guidance and support. He was just not interested in writing his book. And if you don't know who Malachi Martin is, look him up on YouTube. He's interesting as all hell. No pun intended. So he had a lot of demon support initially. We know that Schwartz believed him. We know somewhere here I have my, let me see if I could bring this up. I did a whole expose on the demon story, and this I found interesting as anything. Berkowitz basically takes everything out of the Bible. He takes everything out of the Bible. I mean, he lifts it straight from Lucifer's rebellion, is what he tells Daniel Schwartz. So it's quite interesting. Again, this is stuff that I shared before, but the demon story's coming up again. And, you know, and this is just my opinion. We all have our own opinions. And it really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, opinions don't matter. The data matters. And he started with being haunted by demons. Does that mean that he was actually possessed? No, it doesn't. There are many stages. He could have been just in a very deep state of darkness. So whether you believe that he had demons or not, really doesn't matter. But all I'm saying is that throughout this story, demons are always sprinkled back in, especially now today, with the whole Christian support aspect, the demon possession. It just slides in well with that story. But that doesn't mean that I doubt that he had issues, mental issues. When people discount the demons altogether, I think that you're missing out on a little something. All right, so I already showed all of this stuff in the past, but just kind of coming back, I'm going to get out. There are so many stories that Berkowitz has shared throughout the years with different people. And I will never stop saying that he is so much smarter than people give him credit for. And he is an absolute mirror. He looks at the person in front of him that is entertaining him, and he will give you what you need and what you want. And he keeps himself relevant to this day. And I know he's very elderly and he's not feeling well and all that good stuff, but he certainly keeps himself active in the public. I'm going to take down, if there's no more questions on the timeline, I'm going to scan real quick. I'm going to take it off the screen. I will be signing off shortly. Today was just a short kind of flow. Wanted to check in with you. Didn't want to have to retrain myself on Restream. But I will say I am very deep and knowledgeable with this case. It won't let me let it go, but I am looking into other cases. So if there's anyone out there that is interested in covering something that they feel is important and maybe wants to team up, I would prefer a cold case, something where maybe my nerd skills might actually do some good. I would encourage you to reach out. I've updated my YouTube channel and I'm going to be organizing it a lot better so that all of my Son of Sam catalog stays in a very easy to access way, very comprehensive. I'm going to try to keep relative stuff in relative playlists. And then anything that I do new outside of this case, I will also put in their own playlist. But let me take a few seconds here to see if there's anything in chat. Malachi Martin knew Berkowitz was full of shit. I don't know. I think if anyone would have believed in his possession, it would have been him. His stories continue today based on who is listening. The ultimate puppet master. Hence my artwork on the wall. He's so much smarter than anybody gives him credit for. Oh, cover the Lego case. I'll team up with you. I'll look into it and I'll let you know. It is hot right now. And actually, the Mackenzie Shirilla is like crazy. And believe it or not, the Ohio State, they talk about being proactive. I got tons of FOIA materials that they put out, and the case is insane. But I don't know. It's just, I spent a couple nights up reading through the stuff, and it's a lot. And it has Mormons and Scientology police, etc. All right. Yeah, well, I won't go through them today. If you have interest, you can always connect with me. Anything that I covered today that you would like for me to elaborate on, please let me know. I know that, again, as I said in the beginning of the stream, I realized that not everybody researches. Some of you out there are just eager enthusiasts that enjoy watching the streams. I stay out of the bullshit. I stay out of the sensationalism and all that. So I realized that sometimes when I go deep into the research, I'm just going to learn not to go too long on these streams, because I don't want to just put out a lot of information that goes over heads quickly. But if you are a nerd like me and you want to connect and you have questions about stuff that I brought up and want to see some of my deeper work, just go on my socials. I'm very easy to reach. I'm very relatable. You're nice to me, I'm nice to you. It's that simple. But anyhow, I'm starting to get on the rambling scene. Go check out my YouTube page. Check out the new playlist. If you have not checked out the Cecilia Davis stuff, go ahead. It's just a nice little neat package. A lot of times people forget, especially if you do like doing cross-referencing. You have one thing here, one thing there, one thing here, one thing there. And my goal is to start putting all this stuff. Well, it's not a goal. It's already happened in my timeline, but I'm trying to help present it to the public. And just on a final thought, you're welcome. Anything that I put out into the public sphere, you're welcome to use it. If you want to give us a shout out, that would be the professional thing to do. and not pretend like you found it later on a, on a newspaper article or some bullshit European contact. Just give the channel a shout out. You don't even have to mention my name. Give the channel a shout out. I don't put out material to hoard it. I put out material with the hopes that if there are any researchers left, that they will, say, oh, wow, that's cool. That fills a puzzle piece for me. I've got this. Maybe this fills a puzzle piece for you, and so on and so on and so on. So with that, I'd like to say thank you so much for listening to me ramble tonight. We covered a little bit of my summary on the Gilroy. I did a little housekeeping, showed you what some of the stuff that I've been covering on my wall, some of the things that you are able to ask for me to go deeper, but I'm just, I need to have the interest in it. If the interest is there, I've got the data. So anyway, the people who were here tonight, I thank you very much. I really do. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you chatting, and leave your comments. They help the algos, and make sure you like this video. Until the next, have a great night, guys. Peace.